So I made contact with somebody in charge at the Little Free Library website to let them know that there was a mistake on their map, and it had one of their locations that I was looking for would have been basically right across the street from me. And I was puzzled as to how I'd never spotted it. And it turns out the location was just completely wrong. It was positioned on 34th Avenue, but it's supposed to be way over at Rainey Park. And guess what? They fixed it. So now that library is mapped where it's supposed to be. But it got me looking at the map, and I think I've said before, I don't hate it, but I'd rather just find little free libraries at random versus following direction of a map or some other source. But I had to see this one. This is on 28th Street, between 21st and 20th Avenue in Astoria. Had to see this one because it looks like a British phone box. Or it's modeled after. At least it evokes the British phone box in shape and size. But I'm not saying that's what anybody had in mind when they built this box, but this is charter number 71,143. And this one is simply named the 28th Street Little Free Library. And there's a lot of stuff in here. Apparently this one replaced one that had been stolen. They said when a previous library got stolen, they said they'd supersize this. That's what it says on the website. Well, there's a whole range of stuff. Let's see what's on page 181 of A World in Disarray. If I can get to it. 67. That's one of these things I hate about books, is I frequently cannot separate two pages, one from another. I can flip through them at will, but trying to separate one page from another. Okay. The United States pushed back to some extent. Early in its tenure, the Obama administration articulated the notion of a pivot, later recast as a rebalancing, to Asia, a posture meant to signal that the period of exaggerated emphasis on the Middle East was over. Oh God, that's a long paragraph. The concept was sound, even if the presentation further unsettled traditional partners in the Middle East and Europe without necessarily reassuring those in Asia. Also, to borrow from Woody Allen, if 80% of life is showing up, in foreign policy, 80% of life is following up. Here the record was uneven. High-level trips to the region by the president were canceled, and in the second term of the Obama presidency, neither the Secretary of State nor the National Security Advisor made the region a priority. Increased naval and air presence was slow to materialize, but it did eventually come about in the form of periodic air and naval challenges to Chinese claims. Most important, the Obama administration completed, in 2015, the negotiation of a regional trade accord, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. The positive impact of this accomplishment was diluted, however, as its fate remained uncertain given domestic politics inside the United States. The net result of the region's own dynamic and inconsistent U.S. policy was to leave the Asia-Pacific in a sort of limbo, stable on the surface but unsure of its future. Okay, well, I only saw the title. I didn't notice the American Foreign Policy subtitle. I thought this was going to be more of a, I don't know what, more of a drama. Alright, well, I only came up here more for the box than the books. But it's pretty hefty library. Don't think anybody's going to be walking off with that. So I'm going to go look for another library, but I wanted to mention that there's finally some sign of life at the old King Penny hardware store. It's been closed basically since COVID, but I just walked up there and the lights were on, and I started making a video of the view from outside, but then somebody showed up and I didn't feel appropriate. And in fact, looks like they may have papered over the door since I did that. No, one is papered over, but the other is not. But anyway, the King Penny is on my radar because all the way in the back they have an old rotary dial payphone, which one of the dudes behind the counter once told me would still work if Verizon didn't cut the line, or if Verizon would do something. He said it could still work today if Verizon would cooperate. And it's been closed so long, and the former owners of that place were like very, very old. Like, I mean, they might have been in their 80s. So I don't know what the future for this place is. If it's going to reopen, are they going to renovate? And if they do, are they going to get rid of the rotary? That's really all I care about. But there are some signs of life, though. It's been closed for so long, I thought it was never going to reopen. Or at least not as the King Penny. So here's another one on 36th Street. This is the more customary style of cabinet. And this has some interesting looking stuff. Carl Sagan, Bertolt Brecht. And this one's also found on private property, unlike the last one, which I think they're taking their chances. This is 126143. Margaret Atwood. Oh, I've read these, the love poems of Elizabeth. And Robert Browning. From page 181. Before I ride, what should I do but ride? And passing her palace, if I list, may glance at its window, well betide. So said, so done, nor the lady missed one ray that broke from the ardent brow, nor a curl of the lips where the spirit kissed. Be sure that each renewed the vow, no morrow's sun should arise and set, and leave them then as it left them now. But next day passed, and the next day yet, with still fresh cause to wait one day more, ere each leaped over the parapet. I read that stuff a long time ago. Flash mob. I've never encountered a flash mob in person, but they look like fun. I'm not sure that's what this book is about, but like a flash mob is when, there'll be like a public square, and then one by one, musicians appear, and there'll be a bassoonist at first, and then a violinist, and then a tuba, and then whatever, and the next thing you know, you got a full orchestra playing, totally unannounced. What is this book about? Working for the Los Angeles-based clandestine organization 1%. Yeah, this doesn't look like it's about flash mobs the way I'm thinking. You let go. For that moment, you are flying free, doing exactly what you wanted to do without restraint. I've seen it. Your minds are filled with what can only be called joy. You get to lash out, and for that microsecond in your brain, you bathe in happiness and pretend that you live in a world without consequences. I'm guessing that it doesn't last long. It looks like this was an advanced copy. I don't remember ever hearing about this book, which means absolutely nothing. I'm just saying I never heard of it. Well, I'm going to put that back in, but where did I do this? Let's make Flash Mob the centerpiece. Okay, I don't know anything about this book. Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. It's a mystery. Oh, this is 181. What a low blow from Detective Park, bringing up the second stupidest thing I'd done in my life. It hadn't gone down the way it seemed, though. I'd seen the police records, and they left out some crucial parts of the story. What had happened was I'd been helping my then-fiancé, Sam, set up his restaurant. He'd been getting supplies at amazing prices, and when I asked him about it, all he'd say was, "I know a guy." It was Chicago. I just kind of assumed everybody knew a guy. All right. So this is 36th Street. Number 126143. I think I already said that. When I say the other guy, you're putting it out on a sidewalk, you're taking your chances that it'll get stolen or that some crank will report it to the city and for blocking the sidewalk or something like that. And the city will just come and haul it off. I know that happened a lot with the illegal, the rogue payphones. If you're blocking a city sidewalk, you're taking your chances with the city. I haven't picked one of these up, but I've been seeing these flying all over the place. Elvis Presley 85th birthday U.S. half-dollar tribute. And let's just say I'm skeptical that that's actually going to be worth a $50 or much of anything, or much anywhere near that amount. I was reading about Elvis's autopsy report. They said they're not going to release it for 50 years, which means it's coming. They're going to release it in like 4 or 5 years, I think. I saw some excerpt from a guy who'd seen it, though. He said that like Elvis had something like 7 pounds of compacted stool in his system, among other things, among other conditions that make you ask how he was even alive at all. But, yeah, the autopsy, I don't know. I'm not that big an Elvis fan, but I mean, I am. Then I'm not. I'm not like a groupie. You always have to qualify your level of respect for Elvis, because if you say too much, you sound like a freak. But I always thought he was very, very talented, just overexposed. I haven't been up here in a while, but I do remember this. I thought this was pretty clever. Astoria was not established in 1924, but this house was. This should have been on my never published collection of signs that had the word Astoria on it. And we've got some Halloween decorations already. Off the top of my head, I don't remember when Astoria was founded, like 1840 something, maybe. This one's on 38th, and my heart just skipped a beat because I had to pass the former residence of the only woman I ever loved, but don't let me get started on that. This is number 112665, and it's on the sidewalk. Amy Poehler, The Gut Solution, episode transcripts. That sounds interesting. All disease begins in the gut. Is that true? Let's see, does this even have 181 pages? It might. There's no way I'm going to read all this. I'll never forget a conference that I went to, and one of the international leading immunologists was saying that his daughter had a baby by cesarean birth, and they actually went home and he showed this on a video of the family dog, the Labrador, licking the baby head to tail. Well, head to toe, not tail. Yeah. That looked like too much text for me. Too long lines and no paragraph breaks. I can be lazy like that. I can be lazy in a lot of ways. Well, this one's in bad shape, but yes, please, Amy Poehler. And it's interesting, this book breaks up from straight text to this kind of stuff. That's cool. It's an expensive production. So is this going to be a gossip book? Okay, well, this is page 181. XY. Einstein is cool, but Picasso knows what I'm talking about. Yep, that was page 181. That's right, Amy Poehler's a comedian. How could I forget? The obscene bird of night. It sounds like some name I've been called. The unmaking of the pharaoh. The stationery shop. The flames. Let's see what that is. Sophie Haydock. Once again, I find it hard sometimes to separate one page from another. Aegon leaps to his feet, pulling at Gertrude and spinning her on the spot. Delay your celebrations for just a moment, Egon, Uncle Leopold says. Yes, there's more, I'm afraid. Uncle Leopold has gone to great trouble and has put his own reputation on the line in order to arrange an apprenticeship for you. If you can't get into the railways through the academic route, we must find another way. So you'll be repairing tracks. You start tomorrow first thing at 6:30 in the morning. No student loans for that guy, I guess. And it's number 112665. And now I get to go past her house again. It really does make me feel something when I revisit her hood, her area, her neighborhood. But when I talk about that woman, I always come to the same conclusion that I just didn't know what a good thing I had. I know how cliche that sounds, but I just didn't see it from up above. And if I had simply tried harder, I think it would have made a world of difference. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But if I had tried harder, I think the cultural and the racial differences would have been irrelevant, but that's just something I like to punish myself with, is that kind of thinking. She was all in on the payphone thing, by the way. She was really cool. She called me from payphones all the time. This one's up for grabs at the Militaria store in Astoria, up on Broadway, 42nd Street, more or less. $350, and it's in perfect working condition according to the owner of the place, the proprietor. He says even when you put the coins in, you hear the gong sounds that they make when they hit the gong. Yeah, I gotta stop feeling so sad. That's an automatic electric. So we had two sightings in one here. This library is actually pretty much closer to home than the earlier ones, but I don't really come over here that much. I used to come over here all the time because there's a bar a block over that I used to go to, but I don't really go to bars much at all anymore. So this is this is called the CAD, Little Free Library, the Kaufman Arts District. And I know some of the people that established that named this area the Kaufman Arts District, and they all knew it was a joke, but I don't know what impact it's had on making anybody think this is actually an arts district. But, oops, what is this anyway? Sleeping Freshmen Never Lie, a novel by David Lubar. And it looks like, I thought it was actually spiral bound, but no, it's just freaks and bullies, ridicule and romance, homework, and home havoc. Okay, that was a little weird. I was suddenly surrounded by high school kids, and I thought that I should get out of the way. I guess I didn't have to, because they just turned right back around. So what do we got in this unpromising sounding novel? I'll start this from 180. I made a photocopy for myself after the meeting. I kept waiting for them to run it since it was so funny, and everybody laughed when you showed it around at the meeting, but I guess you never turned it into Mandy. And then there was all this space in the paper since nothing much is going on because of midterms, and you didn't have a new article. So I had a great idea, which I guess you don't know about. Anyhow, I gave a copy to Mandy. Isn't that cool? It's too good not to share. I wish you'd seen it when it came out. It looks great. We put the player's name in bold so they could find themselves more easily. That was my idea. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything. I saved you a copy. Oh, I don't even know what to make of that. I like the sound of this one better. Stay sexy and don't get murdered. Dual memoir by the creators of the #1 hit podcast, My Favorite Murder. Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. It's a how-to guide, how to stay sexy and don't get murdered. You don't need motivation. And the header of this is don't be a fucking lunatic. To be fair, this was said to me by a life coach, but same diff. I had never considered calling a life coach before because my overly cynical self winces at anything hippy-dippy and new agey. To me, a life coach was just for people who didn't have the balls to go to real therapy and face their real problems. But then I was talking to a successful lady friend of mine about how depressed I was about never getting anything done. Now listen, look, I'm a hustler and I work hard, but being a lazy person is my default. It's what I do best. I'm a champion napper. I've even taken a nap in the Louvre, among other weird places. I love chilling and day drinking and taking it fucking easy. But as it turns out, I'm not retired just yet, so I try my best to go against the lazy grain, which is why I always have multiple to-do lists going. Otherwise, I'll don't with everything and take a nap instead. Well, that sounds like it's going somewhere. Now, I said there were 2 sightings at this area. I haven't checked in on these utterly ridiculous K6 phone boxes. These British phone boxes, which were placed out in front of what is a designated landmark. Much to the chagrin of city council, or the community board, and pretty much anybody that ever encounters it. I'm surprised they got away with this. Like, these arrows are pointing to various places, I think. But this says New York City, and it's pointing toward Manhattan, and it really should be pointing at the ground, shouldn't it? Since all 5 boroughs represent. At night, these phone booths, or these boxes as they call them, over there, they light up. There's a kind of tacky light show. I guess, do Saks actually use the outdoor space here? That shows you how little I come over here anymore. I thought I'd heard that this outdoor space, which they caged in, had been a complete flop, but I don't know. But getting back to, I was just going to say that one of the funny things about her was we both hated talking on the phone, like seriously hated talking on the phone. But she would call me now and again only ever from a payphone, and it was really cute. And we wouldn't talk long. She would just be telling me where she is and some little snippet of what was happening, but only from a payphone. That was the unwritten rule. Now that's a hot date, let me tell you. Well, having started with a bunch of libraries that are new to me, might as well check in on the old standby, which is almost always empty. 144584. It's also slightly barricaded by a flower and flower pot display, or plants and flowers. You know, I was thinking again about that first one, the big red one. They really are taking a chance putting it where they do, because anything that's placed curbside like that in that spot is officially Department of Sanitation property. And in fact, it's technically illegal for me to even be messing with it. I mean, I realize this is like taking city rules a little too far, but they'd said they mentioned on somewhere, I guess it was the website, that the previous one got stolen. I'm willing to bet it actually got snarfed by the city, either because some crank complained about it, or sanitation just took a look at it and said, that's ours. I don't know. And not content to end with a free library, I think I'll end instead with the community refrigerator, the community fridge, which is almost always empty. And when it's not, there's often something pretty disgusting in here, although I haven't captured any of that lately. Yep, empty. Oh, look at that. Some bread. Yep. Big hunk of bread, and yeah, just bread in the freezer. So, not empty at least. I better close this.